kids. Party time.
Stay in formation.
Smells bad in here. Then it's gonna get worse.
I would say probably the most anticipated game in this genre since announcement 2. Number 1, we have Endless Dungeon, which is technically the second title in the Endless universe, what some of you might already be familiar with, known by Dungeon of the Endless. Endless Dungeon, though, is a roguelite, tactical action shooter, or more to the point, tower defense game. You have to recruit a team of heroes and fight these never-ending waves of monsters. Here's a trailer. Game set to be coming out of PCs, Switch, and other consoles as well, October 19th.
Friends, this guy may take a couple of tries.
Well, see you at the saloon.
Forget our little doomsday scenarios. In the end, our pride and avarice was to be our downfall.
Announced roughly 24 hours ago, at second we have this science fiction style first-person shooter with base building elements quite reminiscent of Titanfall, going by the name Outpost Infinity Siege. Infinity Siege is actually tagged as a tower defense FPS and a real-time strategy with the aim to combine all of the best of 3 in a bigger experience. The game is coming to PCs only in about 2 months, we hear. Coming as the first work of its developers, but one of the best out of this genre, number 3 we have Castlecraft, or fully named Quest Castlecraft. It's a single-player action tower defense or real-time strategy sim where your base or main challenge is to build huge castles to be able to conquer the battles that are set in an ancient, war-torn world of humans and dragons. Here's a trailer. This voxel-based game, though, is coming to PCs only later this month. Sitting on Steam through early access for just a month, due out fully by the end of the year. For PCs exclusively, number 4, we have The Front. Guys, Front here is a first-person survival sandbox craft and base building in nature, set in some post-apocalyptic sandbox world populated by zombie-like mutants and other monsters. Factions. It's a multiplayer game in nature where you fundamentally get to fight in a tower defense style experience. Check it out, game's a PC exclusive and due out in late 2023. Announced a year ago to this very day. Number 5, we have First Dwarf. It's a action RPG tower defense adventure that's coming from the same developers of Driftland. Their new game over here is a rather cartoony in feel, immersive base building survival and exploration, not to mention set in an open world of islands that are floating in the sky. Now the trailer pretty much showcases the combat. The game is said to be coming out of PCs, Switch, and other consoles as well early next year. Another first-person survival sandbox strategy tower defense style shooter we have in the list is Dune Mechanic. Dune Mechanic survived the Steampunk era, which is, as suggested by the title, is pretty much a post-apocalyptic shooter set on this backdrop of a steampunk world where people can no longer live on the ground, and it's about some dude who was flying in an airship that its engines just break down, and now he smashes the ship on the ground and he has to gather enough resources to repair the thing and hopefully fly off again. Check it out, games releases later this year. Grim Dawn, on the other hand, is a open-world zombie survival top-down shooter, like Alien Isolation games, about some military guy who was supposed to leave town before evacuation, where there was a zombie outbreak all of a sudden. However, he's now stuck due to some complications and now has to live each day by surviving through hell, whilst saving other survivors as well. It's basically Resident Evil in premise / Alien Isolation games, with a lot of upgrading and some strategic building and crafting components. Take a look. Going back to shooters mainly, we've got over here a third-person shooter, a skill-based actually, third-person sandbox survival shooter going by the name Hostile Moss. Guys, it's halfway a factory building game with a rather heavy focus on huge battles and even bigger waves of different types of enemies to encounter each round. In this game, you start off with a simple plain old gun, then you get to build a base with what you get by killing, upgrade, and let those buildings defend for you. This is a PC exclusive as well and releasing later this year. Available through a demo on Steam since last week, we've got over here a combination of action RPGs and tower defense games going by Legendary Hoplites. Here in Legendary Hoplite, your job is to prevent humanity from extinction at the hands of monsters from Greek mythology and ancient tribes. You get to unlock different troops, level up skills, build towers, and try to prevent enemies that are trying to cross the gate. Games December here, this year for PCs only. Siege of Eredor is a city-building strategy game set in dark medieval times where, as described by the team, fantasy and reality are supposed to collide, where you build by day and defend the sieges you made by night to survive against the armies of darkness. So the game is basically Settlers in formula, except the emphasis is just on building and fighting, a day and night cycle, and a lot of that, as opposed to more farming. Check it out, game set to be coming to PCs only later this year. Once again, available through a demo on Steam, we've got over here these Doomed Isles. This is a single-player tower defense city building strategy, albeit with roguelike deck building mechanics, where you get to harvest cards to raise land from the sea, build settlements for your followers, and eventually deal with the enemy. Guys, y'all played Dota Underlords? It's actually a mix of that and a little bit of Advance Wars of Nintendo. This game's releasing for PCs eventually, September this year.
You want to know how it all began? About everything.
Announced a month ago on IGN, number 12 we have Cataclysm with a demo on Steam right now. This is a real-time strategy tower defense, quite a bit inspired by Mana Lords, where you actually piece together a castle from scratch and put troops all over it to defend enemy waves every night. I couldn't really help but notice it's actually inspired by the Stronghold Crusader games, but that's just me. Anyway, game is coming to PCs only rather soon.
Fears we faced. The heights we reached. And the cold we bore. Well, it didn't start with us, friend. It began with her.
And last but not least, the first work of its developers too, we've got Faraway Lands. I think I've mentioned it maybe once, but this is an exploration tower defense city building sim inspired by Kingdom Crowns, whereas the difference between this and the Kingdom games is that you actually manage a whole village every time. Gather resources, trade with other cities, and eventually defend. So you could say it's Kingdom Crown with just extra miles, set in ancient Japan. This game is coming to PCs only in the third quarter of 2023.